Hi, my name is Marcus Timpson from Future Print. Welcome to this webinar, How to Create Sustainable Print Technology and Processes. It's clear, isn't it? Sustainability is back in and on the agenda. I think the lockdown period really changed things. It moved sustainability from an ethical side issue into a much more of a strategic, central issue that's really important for people to get their heads around. We're hearing about net zero targets. We're awaiting legislation to force things through. We're getting changes in social attitudes, the younger generation who are just not prepared to take products or invest in products that are not sustainably produced. So what do we need to do to meet these changing? So, well, we've assembled a team here in partnership with Fazane Technology who will tackle this issue head on. And we have Niklaus Olsen from the world of inks with Flint Group. We have Andrea Pasqualini from Bobst, who are very well famous. He's going to talk around their innovation, specifically focused on label printing. We have Anne Robak, who's going to be talking about Ethical, one of his customers who are a leading Polish sustainable converter. And then we have Rob Carson from Fazane Technology, who will kick things off really with a little bit about the advantages of UV LED curing. So welcome again. I hope you enjoy this coming 60 minutes. Over to you, Rob.
Making the right investment decisions can pay off handsomely now. And we certainly see that with certain customers who've invested in, say, LED technology as part of a sustainable process. And of course, with the benefit of hindsight, now that's paying off handsomely, where they've got very reduced energy costs in their processes. So yes, I mean, it's very important, but it's got to be part of a bigger package. I think that's really what we're saying here is that, you need to look at the equipment, you look at the light sources, you look at the process, you look at the materials, whether it's Flint, Fozion, or Bobst, there's value to be had in this, in all of what we're proposing in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll introduce next Andrea, Niklaus, and then Adam, and then we'll get the kind of full process and full picture. So yeah, by all means, please, off you go and present.
Okay, fine. Let me just share my screen and go here. And so just a very quick overview of what Fozion does. We're the #1 in the world in LED curing. We have light sources that have many tens of thousands of hours of proven reliability. We've shipped hundreds of thousands of units. We only do LED technology. And we've been in business for actually over 20 years now. So we started in 2002. So it's a very environmentally sustainable and proven technology. So if we look at what we're trying to achieve in terms of LED benefits in a sustainable process, some of the key benefits here, which is it's a nice graphic here, which kind of illustrates it. At pollution prevention, 50 to 80% less CO2 emissions. And I'll put some numbers on that later. Waste reduction, so light sources that require no spare parts reduce the waste stream into the environment. Eco-friendly, environmentally sustainable light, which again, because of the lack of waste, the lack of emissions, and the energy savings, like we said, we can save up to 80% of the energy required for the curing process, which is a substantial part of the overall energy budget on a press. And then, of course, no mercury. So this is a no toxic mercury waste stream. So these are some of the key benefits that we see in terms of looking at the more traditional technology with our more advanced LED technology. So for creating a sustainable print process, we need to really look at an analysis of the entire business. Fozion, this is really talking about the move from a linear to a circular economy. And on Fozion, UV LED is an important component in this entire process. But we should also consider that, when we're looking at like our facilities, whether we're heating using ground source heat pumps, cooling using, Adam, as you mentioned about someone using a lake outside their factory to cool, lighting, introducing LED transport, whether it's, natural gas powered trucks or electric trucks, just the types of energy and in the way we have our logistics planned. Materials, like I mentioned about reduce, reuse, recycle. These are the important things that we need to consider. And our working practices. And we know that a sustainable process is a clean process. It's also a great working environment for people. And we know that brand owners, every global brand has a sustainability initiative. And this is influencing a converter's choice of processes and technologies that they'll employ. And it used to be that, it was just some statement in a corporate report somewhere, but now companies are actually being audited for their sustainability processes, and they're putting a real dollar value on these things. So if you take something as simple as switching to a Phosion air-cooled Nexus UV LED system, you will save up to over 70% of the energy required for curing. And that's a substantial amount. And especially now that we've seen energy costs in many countries double, triple, quadruple in some cases. So the advantage is even bigger. And an air-cooled system gives you the maximum amount of energy saving. If you go to a water-cooled system, you're going to require an additional 20% more energy because you need to drive a chiller and a pump and all these things. So the most efficient systems are air-cooled systems. And we've seen with the rapidly increasing energy costs that the ROIs on retrofits are less than 18 months, in many cases even less than a year. So the decision is very clear that investing in this technology pays off, and it pays off quickly. Our increased energy costs are here to stay for quite a while. Hundreds of lamps have been fitted annually. The technology is proven and effective. There are many companies now running full LED presses, and you can save over a 10-year life of a press. You could save up to €750,000 per press over the life of the press by switching to something like Phosion Nexus. Are LED sustainable? Well, for certain, LED is the best choice for sustainable UV curing. There's no mercury. The mercury ban in manufacturing process is growing globally. No greenhouse gases. Ozone produced or needed to be evacuated from the facility, and significantly reduced energy usage versus mercury UV and high energy water-based dryers. So yes, absolutely, it is the sustainable choice. In terms of environmentally sustainable products, at Phosion, we're fully committed to the well-being of the environment. We continuously to work to reduce the environmental impact of the products that we manufacture. Phosion LED solutions offer consistent and reliable power output. It's really important. They eliminate greenhouse gases, remove mercury from an entire category of industrial processes. We started this process back in 2002 when we launched our first LED light sources. And its products have now been collectively saving millions of pounds and kilos of CO2 emissions since inception. And it's no doubt that LED is the only sustainable choice for UV curing. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help create a change in the entire printing process. We've been very effective right the way through in various different types of printing, whether it's screen print, whether it's inkjet, flexographic, offset, all different types of print processes. So thank you very much. That's mainly my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. And obviously curing, in your experience, is that a aspect of a print machine that people think of at the beginning when they're thinking of creating something, or is it because this is a linear process, they think about it at the end? Or
well, I think you very much have to have it in mind because at the point in time when you're specifying a print press, you'll need to specify whether it's what type of ink system you'd be using on that press. It is possible to change a press but you wouldn't want to be doing that at the beginning, right? You'd be specifying at the beginning the process, and it's perfectly possible. I think with any of the major press manufacturers now, you can specify that you want a Phosion LED system on there, and they'll happily supply it. So and then you'll get the benefits of that. Nicholas will tell us later about the availability of
Yeah.
of inks and coatings. Certainly Bobst, quite capable of supplying and have in many cases supplied several Phosion light sources on presses, which Adam will talk about. So yes, it's something that needs to be considered at the beginning.
And have you seen this year in particular an increase in interest in the kind of performance of this technology, given the fact it can save so much energy and overall so much money?
I mean, we've had a lot of interest anyway, because it also, you get, increases in performance in the print process, better yields and higher efficiency and all that. But yet there's no doubt that, these huge increases in energy costs has spurred people who may have been on the fence about making a decision to deciding, now I really need to make that decision. So there are a lot of people who are looking, interested. There are many people who've made the change already, but certainly the current market dynamics are certainly accelerating that change.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point, isn't it, that I think when we're disadvantaged or inconvenienced, that is powerful motivation for change. And by all accounts, it looks like since the business was begun back in 2002, sustainability has been a part of the overall kind of philosophy. Is that right?
Well, we've been very much from the beginning a clean technology company, right? So very much the message about getting heavy metals like mercury out of the manufacturing process, about getting heat out of the manufacturing process, about having more efficient manufacturing processes with less waste streams. And energy used to be part of that discussion. But now energy has become a very important part of that discussion, probably more than it has been in the past, largely because of the huge increases. But it has a very important role to play for sure. But we've been pretty much a clean technology company from the beginning. That was the whole idea.
So having that vision is an important aspect of being sustainable and embracing the journey, I think. And overall, it's about reducing, isn't it? Andrea is joining us from Bobst. And whereabouts are you, Andrea? Because you're not in the UK, are you?
Right. So I start sharing my screen.
So you're in Italy, aren't you, Andrea? So we were talking earlier, you're in Florence, yeah?
Yeah. I'm located in Florence. So as you know, Bobst is a big group. And here in Florence, we mainly deal with, this product line is called Narrowmid Web, because we deal with inline flexo and digital technologies to produce mainly labels, but also some flex pack and some folding carton.
Brilliant. And focus today is a bit more on labels, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Brilliant. Well, welcome. If you'd like to share your...
Yes. Okay.
Brilliant.
Great. So I will start this presentation taking a look at, or saying a few words about this image that you have here that represent our vision, so Bobst vision. And as you can see, one of the pillar of Bobst vision is sustainability. So it's really, it's not just a concept, it's something that we are working on. We are working on day by day. And it's also part of our stakeholders' needs. That is where this vision comes from. So first we look at the stakeholders' needs, and part of this needs is sustainability. And then we develop afterwards this vision of the packaging industry. And looking at talking about sustainability in the label production process. So what does it mean? So being sustainable means mainly to reduce energy consumption, to reduce water consumption, to save on material waste, save on ink, and reduce the emission of CO2. And how all this can be possible in the label production process, mainly with automation and digitalization. Since the beginning, the vision of this company has been to automatize and digitalize label production process. And back in the past, when we only had flexo technology in our portfolio, the reason was to bring flexo as close as possible to digital. today that we also have digital technology, this gives us the main benefit of creating a new category that we call all-in-one, where basically we merge together digital and flexo into one labeled platform, into one platform. And this helps converters to deal with their main pain points, such as time to market, lack of skilled operators, color consistency, and last but not least, also sustainability, because probably for some specific application, the all-in-one solution is the best choice if you want to go sustainable. But now let's take a look at the automation I was mentioning before. Let's see how integrating this kind of automation into a label production process can benefit in terms of reduction of waste and in terms of sustainability. So we started with register and pressure. Register and pressure probably are two of the most important parameters in label production. And with what we call DigiFlexo, we basically automatize, set up the setting and control of register thanks to mark-to-mark detection camera, like the one you have here in this picture, that can set and control the register on every printing unit. So this makes sure that your make-ready waste and time is really reduced. And most of all, the operators can concentrate in preparing the following job while the press is printing, since the camera will take care of controlling the register. For what concerns pressure, it means that basically the operator will insert the thickness of the material in the HMI, and the pressure will be adjusted accordingly thanks to 4 servo motors on each flexo printing unit. Then we looked at color management, and we introduced what is known today as OneECG. Back in the past was called Revo. Anyway, is the extended color gamut kind of process that you can have on a flexo press. It's true that anyone could actually print with this kind of process on any kind of press, but what is the difference in choosing OneECG, and so in choosing a box press with this kind of, let's say, technology, is that we give basically converters a recipe to print profitably, properly, and effectively in ECG with just a few weeks of training. So this is the big advantage of choosing this kind of process. And then we look at job change. So we look at job change of the printing cylinder, job change of the die plate, and we launch, or we have what is known as excellence. So basically you can move from one job to the other with just a click of a button. And so that's why we say that some flexo press with all this kind of automation looks like actually a digital press in the way it behaves when you need to move from one job to the other. Last but not least is quality inspection. We have introduced for the first time on a label press what is known as AccuCheck. It's something not new since Bob's AccuCheck is already well known in the folding carton industry, but we have introduced it for the first time on the label press with the launch of our digital master press. That is what I was mentioning before, the all-in-one solution where we combine an highly productive digital printing unit with an extremely automated flexo unit. I will not go into the details of this press, but it was good to show you the ultimate step in this digitalization and automation process. Now, let's have a look at some numbers. So what is the real benefits of integrating all this automation in your label production? This table that you have here shows you the make-ready time, make-ready waste, and ink needed in a label production. We are taking as an example the production of one label, 6 colors, CMYK plus 2 Pantone, 2000 linear meter at 100 meters per minute, and with 50% of ink coverage. So as you can see, without any kind of automation, the make ready time accounts approximately for 39 minutes. That is, if you consider that this production will take you 17 minutes, so a total of 56 minutes, these 39 minutes represent 70% of the total production. 85% in terms of waste and 26% in terms of extra ink needed to do the color matching. Then we introduce, we introduced the first kind of automation, that is Digiflexo, that, as I said before, it deals with pressure and register adjustment. So as you can see, pressure, the make ready time for pressure and the make ready waste drop down to 0. And you have a small amount of time still needed to do the fine tuning for register, and so a small amount of waste needed for this fine tuning. But the big advantage, so the big step, you can do it introducing 1ECG. Okay, this is Digiflexo, and this is 1ECG. So basically, introducing 1ECG in your label production, you can get rid of the make ready time you will need to load the ink tray, to load the analogs, the dottor blade, and to load the ink into the press, and most of all to do the color match. So you move from 39 minutes of make ready times to 3 minutes and 30 seconds to do to prepare the same job, and the amount of waste will drop down to 20 meters. So it is a lot, and cherry on the cake, if you introduce what is called excellence, so the automation in job change that allows the operator to get rid of the make ready time, you will need to load the printing cylinder, because basically you load the printing cylinder for the next job while the first one is still printing. So this is the secret out of it. And at the end of this process, so integrating all this kind of automation, we have calculated that you can save you can save 65% of energy, 25% of water. You can reduce the material waste by 89%, the ink by 42%, and the CO2 emission by 24%. Obviously, these are numbers that we calculated according to the specific example I was showing to you before, but you are more than welcome to submit your job basket and to challenge us in creating or in calculating these numbers according to your specific job basket.
Excellent. Excellent. And with that in mind, with all of the reductions that you're able to achieve with the technology that you've created there and all the kind of efficiencies and so on, have you sort of identified labels as really leading the way in terms of sustainability? So label printers, are they people that are serving a specific part of the market that are very concerned about sustainability?
Yeah, for sure, labels and packaging is for sure one of the sectors that has to deal with sustainability, because if you compare labels and packaging to graphics and publishing, labels and packaging is the fastest growing one, and publishing and graphic is declining because most of the books or magazines are moving to electronics device, while labels is still there. Products, the consumption of the product is increasing, so that there is more needs of labels, and most of all, labels and packaging is a sector where we are experiencing more and more the reduction of the run length. So that's why we need to look into sustainability, into automatize as much as possible the label production, the production process, in order to reduce any kind of waste.
Excellent. And just out of interest, are you seeing from your customers a greater demand, a continued greater demand for shorter run printing?
Yeah. this
Yeah.
is one of the main, let's say, the main trigger of finding new way to automatize, to reduce as much as possible. Because if you are printing short runs, you don't need to waste, or you need to reduce as much as possible the waste from one job to the other. Otherwise, you will lose your profitability. And for sure, in narrow mid web, in the label, in the production line where we are and where I am, and where we deal mainly with labels, we are the first one to experience the reduction in the run length, and the first one to introduce this kind of technology. For example, I was talking about 1ECG. We were the first one to introduce this kind of process in 2015. Then gravure printing, so a different PL in Bob's, introduced this kind of process, if I'm not wrong, in 2020. So for sure, label is, let's say, the first one to experience the reduction of the run length.
So short runs is that the bigger influence perhaps than sustainability generally, or what's forcing people to change really? Do you think it is the economic need rather than the concern for the environment?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, in the past, probably the answer would be yes, for sure, it's an economic reason. Today, we hear a lot of, let's say, commitment mainly from brand owners to go towards sustainability. So for sure, there is also the push from the brand owner side to go into this direction, and most of all, the push from consumer side. So looking at sustainability today, probably, let's say, today is more into the substrates, because it's the first thing in the eye of the consumers. So it's easy to deliver a sustainable message if you say that your label is made of recycled materials, or it can be easily recycled. But it's much more difficult to say, for example, that a label has been produced with a ECG kind of process in front of the customer. So
okay,
there are many drivers towards this trend.
Yeah, interesting. When you're innovating and developing new technology, this final question before I introduce Nicholas, to what extent do you kind of, how important in the whole process of this is UV LED curing?
It is important, but not just because we have Fosun here, but
yeah.
But most of all, because we are all experiencing these days an energy cost increases. So for sure, customer is asking more and more for a solution that can reduce the energy consumption. And we see our customers coming here in the demo center asking more and more for LED technologies to be integrated in their in-line FlexoPress. So this is,
so the awareness of the LED curing technology has got greater and greater, yeah?
Yes, correct.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks so much for that, Andrea. That was excellent, very interesting. It's great to have Bob's involved in this session. I'd like to now introduce Nicholas to the virtual stage. And Nicholas, whereabouts in the world are you dialing in from? Obviously, you're with Flink Group, a very famous brand, and a famous country that you are.
I'm situated in Trelleborg, Sweden, the most southern town of Sweden, where the narrow web, southern relative, but it's southern in Sweden. So so that's my home base, and working in the mother point of, say, the narrow web production and R&D center.
Right. So obviously, you know Fazane well, and you know Bob. So I was, with you being the expert about inks, obviously incredibly important. Often inks are perhaps secondary. Are they thought of secondary when creating a new technology, or?
Yeah, I feel we always late and the final one that they bring in. But I think also this call is all about cooperation. I think you can't get it. I mean, it's interesting to hear about the automation technology with the Bobs. I know, because we were part of getting the ECG working, and there was still some work that we needed to do in cooperation to get that to match what customer wants. So and I think the story around LED is the same. The idea came, we worked with Fosun, and now we have, say, this, I would say, wonderful technology that can help everybody to reduce energy. So it's all about cooperating. Whether
Yeah,
we are in the first or we are in the last stage, it doesn't matter. I think as long as we cooperate and we find synergies in what we do, it's good.
We've been working together about 10 years now, haven't we, Nicholas?
Yes, yes. So we're looking a bit older, maybe, but
A bit more experienced.
yeah.
Mature.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well, so Nicholas, you've got a few slides for us, aren't you?
Yes,
tell me a
and
little
I'm
bit about them.
now trying to multitask, which normally is so. Do you see the right image here?
Yeah, and I would imagine very shortly it will go into full screen.
Or I need to do something here as well,
Okay.
like that.
Yes. Brilliant.
Better. Okay. So this is just a starting page with, when, say, again, bringing the inks, where can we improve sustainability using inks? And I mean, sometimes it's like, yeah, it's still a chemical. So, and it's sort of used in a process. So where do really the ink help? And this is just a sort of a snapshot of different ideas that we're working on, that how we can help. And I think there isn't, there's small steps or larger steps, and they all help to say, create a more sustainable future for all of us. When we do this work, we focus basically in three streams. You could say 3 sessions, A, B, C. A is what we do in our own plants. Obviously, we do everything we can to improve the use of energy, reduce the number of wastewater. There are different measurements that we internally in the factory are doing in everything that we do to help to sort of make sure that we are more sustainable than maybe last year and the year before that. So there is some stringent targets that we're working towards for 2030. So the second part is what I will focus my presentation on, and that's how we can help converters on improve their sustainability in their operations. So that's a main focus of today. In the end, I will also add some novelty things that we are working on of how to further enhance the circular economy by printing with something that will enhance recycling. So this is still in this infinite stage. So, but it's something that I wanted to share with you to inspire maybe some ideas on what else we can do with ink. Overall, as we heard from Rob, with UV LED light or UV lamps, basically the ink's role is to work with the UV LED, with the wavelength, with the power, etc., etc. Over the last 10 years, we've been working with Fosun, and we now could say that this is maybe the easiest and most quick step any converter could take, because you will help reduce the carbon footprint, you will save your energy consumption yourself. So it's a win-win. We save for the environment, you save for your bottom line. On the other hand, also LEDs, we've over the years we've been proven that these are having additional features that when you print food packaging or labels for food, you have consistent cure over time, you have no degradation of the LED lamps. Again, an additional benefit. When we started this, yes, can we do inks for LED? And I mean, that was the initial stage some 10 years ago. And now we could see over the time, we've now been focusing and expanding from, I've managed to get, a picture, maybe not so good, from the first ever commercial print on Label Expo 2014 that we did together with Fosun lamps. And labels were the initial focus. Today, we know it can be used on, similar to what Bob say, I mean, narrow web, mid web packaging. It's a very wide area today. It's labels, it's wraparound, it's shrink sleeves, pouches, and yes, you can use LED inks on all of that. The improvements we've seen, I know there are some still early adopters saying, well, I tested LED 5 years ago, didn't work. Well, there's been a lot of developments over the time because of time. Yes, there were maybe some issues with viscosity initially because again, this is a technology that has pushed the boundaries of what is possible in UV curing. And now we have low viscosity UV inks, LED inks that are possible to run at high speeds. we've introduced a technology which we call dual cure, which maybe is redundant in one way when everybody's switched to LED, because this is just additional support when you are in that transition phase, that these inks will also cure under mercury. But initially, or say ultimately, they are designed to run with LED. I mentioned food packaging, low migration. Again, this has been a cornerstone in what we think is the key element for LED because of the assuredness of cure over time. And yeah, basically, this is the LED inks are nothing new in that sense. They should do what your inks are doing today, but they should do it under LED curing, which is again the combination of cooperation that we've seen or that I mentioned earlier. Other things we can add to your operations to help you improve your sustainability footprint, to reduce your anything that we can do to that will reduce waste, whether it's packaging, whether it's time on press, that you don't waste, that Andrea was talking about color matching. Every time you stop your press to change color, yes, there is a X amount of meters of waste there. Half an hour here, half an hour there. Every bit of that adds up. So there's a lot of different programs that we can offer to help. Also look at, say, packaging, how we can help you with your ink kitchen, how to optimize everything so you don't generate waste, whether it's in your warehouse, whether it's in your operation. And all of these add up. Every lorry that we don't have to ship things from A to B is obviously helping the greater good of all of us. Talking about the new innovations that we have in the pipeline, these are technologies that are yet, I mean, they're in I would say beta phase. Some of these are still subject to, you could say, not authority, but at least recommendations from, because we're exploring a new part of the value chain when introducing the plastic recycling part. We've been focused on everything in supply chain of how to print and supply a product that will meet the brand owner's demands. Now we also have to look at, say, what happens after the product being used. And this is a new chapter that, so the two products that we've been developing and that we sort of having in the pipeline is one varnish that will help by protecting ink. So whether your label is being then on the bottle washed away, so that's a one recycling stream that we now are looking at. Say you take a bottle, you have a label is washed away, bottle is separated, and you recycle the bottle easier, and the label is waste afterwards. So that's the residue. In that process, the ink should not contaminate the products. So you can't have anything that will say degrade into the finished goods. So then when you recycle the bottle, so that's the varnish here is to protect the ink from leading and causing any issues in the wastewater. The second one is a primer, where basically it magic in one way, but it will print and perform through the whole step of your supply chain that's on the bottle in the lifetime of the bottle. But the minute that you throw that away and it goes into the waste stream, the ink should be washed away together with this primer, and again be filtered away and separated out of the waste stream. Again, this is where the contamination risk is being assessed big time, and we are obviously still working with all of the different bodies that are in the process of recycling to ensure that this is not happening. And we have some products where we think it's possible to do and do this successfully. But it's still early days, and it's just an idea to share with you that we're working on. So I think anything we do in sustainability, it involves new technology. There are other ideas that we're working on, new resin technology that will also help going further, step by step, improving the and sustainability, or overall sustainability in the print room and in the graphics. The best way to do this is to change to LED. It is directly impacting reduction of carbon footprint, but also reducing your operating costs, and therefore assist every converter in their bottom line today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I've got a question for you, Nicholas. Obviously, you kind of partly answered it already. So in an ideal world, an ink would be discussed at the beginning, wouldn't it, in terms of developing something? If you were looking for a sustainable print technology solution, ink and the profile of the ink and how it's cured and how it's managed and how it's made must be.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think in a way we know that any ink, you should say, I mean, ideally we come up with a fantastic ink and then we tell Bob's to develop a press that can run it and a lamp that can cure it. Or, I mean, that's a little bit far-fetched, I would say. So we have to look at, sometimes, yes, if we say to get, say, I mean, for example, one of these ideas that is existing out there with, can we do an ink that is fully biodegradable? I mean, let's face it, you can't, I mean, the pigments used to be used in food stuff are not very colorful. We'll get some very dodgy print results out of a food grade ink. So that's highly unlikely we could get to that stage, but you never know. I think sometimes you're being challenged to do things. I know in one conversation we had many years ago with one, can you do a sound effect inks?
Okay.
Yeah, so basically a packaging or label that will, with the minute you touch it, should give a sound. Now, we haven't started that development, to be honest. So
no, don't blame you. Actually, it sounds cool, but sounds.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I mean, sometimes you need to have those blue sky thinking about what can we do, how can we add value to brand owners' packaging. But I think nowadays sustainability is obviously core and something that's high on our agenda and involved in every project that we're working on.
And on that note, then, are you getting a lot of people? Are you seeing an increase in inquiries and concern about sustainability?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I think, I mean, to be fair, the LED, there's a lot of interest these days now in LED because of the energy. And I know that's you have, I mean, you could say, why haven't people changed before? Maybe, yeah, it was a nice idea, but I mean, until it starts like now, suddenly there is a crisis on energy. So I think that's also natural that people react to it. But I think sustainability, we know from there's a pressure from the community to say, I mean, look at technology. How can they want to be ahead of legislation that is looking at that? There is some legislation coming from EU. I think is still on discussion, how packaging waste directives, etc. So I think there is a concern that there will be some legislation coming up, and people want to be ready for that.
Yeah, that's a powerful motivation for change. Well, listen, thanks so much, Nicholas. So we've heard Andrea from Italy and from Bob's, Nicholas there from Flint Group in Sweden. I'm now going to introduce Adam Roback from somewhere in Germany. I don't know exactly where, but I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it? But you're going to be talking, Adam, a little bit about a kind of a very innovative customer of yours called Etikod. Is that right? And you're going to give us a bit of a feel for how they have integrated sustainability as a business from a converter's standpoint.
Yes, exactly. So Etikod was supposed to present today, but the owner and CEO Aaron Huch could not make it because of personal reasons. So I stepped in and I will be presenting his presentation that he prepared for this webinar today. Etikod is a Phosion customer. Etikod is also a Flint customer, and as a matter of fact, Etikod is also a Bob's customer. So it was a very good combination, almost perfect to say the least. Also because Etikod is one of the most innovative companies I have seen surely around that embraces sustainability fully. So I'm going to start off with the presentation that Aaron prepared.
Okay.
Etikod is the converter. It's a Polish-based company with the headquarters in Katowice in Poland. They have been on the market for over 25 years now. Currently they're in the second generation. So Aaron took over from his father. You can see the father on the picture here. And Ethicoat is transforming the self-adhesive label industry with let's say a different kind of approach, a different kind of thinking. Labels printed on wood, for example, or aluminum, of course, also on film and foil and standard paper. And just today, Aaron resent me this presentation because they have been awarded an award from the Forbes magazine as the most innovative company in terms of privately held small to medium-sized businesses, family privately held small to medium-sized businesses. So quite a nice reward to achieve. Ethicoat from the very beginning has been embracing sustainability, not only in printing, but also in the way they designed even the factory. So Ethicoat runs 5 flexopresses. They are all Bobst machines. And these 5 flexopresses, they include also 2 newly purchased Bobst M5 10 color presses with full Phosion UV LED equipped. They also have 2 HP Indigo presses in their factory and several converting machines from other vendors. The company actually has no chillers on any of the machines. So they are using geothermal energy to cool the water for their presses. And as a matter of fact, they are the only company worldwide to run HP Indigo presses without chillers. They have no air conditioning, but the climate is kept at 21°C throughout the whole year, also using geothermal energy. They reduce energy consumption by, from one side, using Phosion UV LED on their presses, and on the other side, they have transformed the factory to a smart factory in the offices and in the factory itself. So lights turning on and off. Of course, LED lights are used all over. And as you go, they go on and then go off automatically. Also, the blinds go up and down according to the weather, according to the sun, where it comes from. So to use the heat from the outside or reduce it in the summer months. They have solar panels on the roof, which substantially supply them a substantial amount of energy that they need to run the plant. And the heat of the machines is actually reused again for heating the buildings. So they don't waste any energy inside the factory, and they try to reuse everything they have to heat either the building or the water for their employees to use. So it's very interesting. Their motto is always that sustainability starts, with small steps, and you need to take many of them to then become fully sustainable. So in terms of UV LED, which is supplied by Phosion in Ethicoat's case, and the inks they use supplied by Flint, they have, as I mentioned before, 2 Bobst M5 presses with 10 colors each. What they found out by comparing 2 similar presses, because they happen to have older Bobst presses, also M5 with traditional lamps, they found out that they can reduce their energy consumption compared to the traditional lamps by 70%. Also, what they are mentioning here, well, they have no spare parts, so they have reduced downtimes on the presses. The lamps are fully air-cooled, so no chillers are required, and no maintenance of the chillers is required. Also, of course, less energy is consumed. There is no ozone in UV LED lamps in general, so there is no under pressure in the factory, and which gives them much better thermal dynamics because they don't have to exhaust the ozone out of the building and then recirculate it back in. They have much better machine uptime because they have no heating up or cooling down of the lamps. The lamps switch on and off immediately. And what Aaron mentioned, they run higher production speeds. And that varies on jobs. As UV LED lamps have no mercury, there is no hazardous waste that they need to get rid of. And they reduce their carbon footprint significantly which means less energy means less CO2. And if you have less CO2 and you want to be a fully carbon neutral company, you need to offset CO2 by buying certificates, which when you produce less, you buy less CO2 certificates. So it really translates into money at the end. The inks they use are EcoCure inks from Flint. They mentioned that these inks they found have much better adhesion and curing performance at higher speeds than traditional inks. So they are very happy with this combination. And this is Aaron, who was supposed to present today, but as I mentioned before, unfortunately he couldn't make it. Actually, the picture is taken from the production floor, and it's always that clean there. I just wanted to point out it's not only because of the picture. This is how the factory looks like. So it's a very well taken care of factory. And what the statement he wrote here, I think, sums up many things during this webinar today. So when we made the decision to invest in a new machine, we knew we could only remain competitive if we invested in the latest technology in our future. In opting for Bobst and Phosion, we like the perfect combination of two suppliers that have shaped the past and will shape the future of flexography. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, amazing case study of a real-life converter who has absolutely integrated a sustainable strategy into the business. And I'm curious on a couple of things I wanted to ask Adam. One was, are their prices or Etikod's prices compared to their closest competitor? I believe they're one of the leading converters in Poland anyway. Are they competitive with their closest competitor in terms of prices, or do they cost more? Or
Well, I don't know the prices, but from what I know from all the conversations I had with Aaron at Etikod is that they are very competitive, even compared to smaller companies that maybe only have 1-2 presses and have a much smaller overhead, just because they have embraced sustainability so early in the process, right? And now that prices are going up with electricity, and gas and heating, they can be even more competitive on pricing, because the price of a label now really depends on a quite significant portion on the energy price, right? So reducing your energy overall cost will reduce at the end your label cost, right? Your cost per label. So yes.
Yeah, very good. In terms of advice, so obviously Etikod's a leader in the field. Does it give them a distinguishing kind of brand that does it give them a sales advantage, do you think, as a business?
Yeah, surely. I mean, many big companies and many big groups like P&G, GlaxoSmithKline, and many others, they want to work with companies that are carbon neutral and that have incorporated sustainability. And so, yes, like Rob mentioned before, there are now audits regarding sustainability. So to gain those customers, right, you need to be a very modern, sustainable, and in many cases carbon neutral business, right?
Yeah, interesting. So this kind of question is for everyone really, as we kind of move to the last sort of few minutes. With that in mind, what advice do you think around becoming more sustainable or creating more sustainable print technology? What kind of advice would you give someone that's perhaps looking further, to start their journey? What kind of advice would you give? Start with you, Adam. Yeah.
To give him an advice on how to start.
Well, yeah, I mean, how would if someone? What kind of advice would you give someone that wanted to become more sustainable?
Well, it's small steps that you need to take, right? So you can't become sustainable in a day or even in a year, I suppose. It takes time. And of course, turning your presses to UV LED, but also changing even your lighting in the office and in the factory to LED lighting will give you significant savings in terms of energy. And at the moment, energy costs are the cost factor number one for any plant. So reducing these costs will not only give you a more sustainable business further down the road, but it will impact your financial, your revenue at the end, right? So these for a printer, what we have seen, and we have seen this with Etikot, but many others converters that we retrofitted in the past, is just by retrofitting you can reduce your cost and be sustainable at the same time. Yes.
Brilliant. Any advice you would give, Andrea, about?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Adam. I mean, it's a matter of going with step by step. But in my opinion, yeah, you can go step by step, obviously, but you need to have the complete picture in mind. I mean, you need to understand where actually you could improve your current facility, your production process, in order to be sustainable. And as was Nicholas was telling during his presentation, it's a matter of partnership, is a matter of considering all the components involved in the process, not just inks, not just LED lamps, not just the machine itself. So really the suggestion is to consider the complete picture and then start with smaller steps.
Small steps, yeah. So Nicholas, you'd agree with that, would you? And
I do.
Getting the ink right, presumably, getting the right ink from the right supplier.
Well, that's one part, but I think in every, I mean, I think also use your, your employees, make a workshop, kind of look at, changing behaviors. Where can we do things differently to save time, to save some ways to reduce this? I think that's also, there's no magic wand or a magic pill. I think what we said today is there is a very easy step, in the sense that today is not a big change, and that's to change another lamp technology or say lighting, and that gives you a direct feedback. But again, work across every, you could say everything from how you receive goods, how you ship goods, what can we do differently, and every small step will bring something well to the sustainability footprint of your company.
Brilliant. Rob, any final thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Well, I mean, the one thing I will say is that, I think that, all of them have made excellent points, but really you need to start from the point of view, it's like a philosophy, right? And you need to take, like Andrea and Nicholas and Adam have said, it's a holistic approach. You need to look at every step of the process, and you need to start where I think it makes the most, you get the best returns on your investment, and that's what it's all about. But it's an embracing a whole philosophy, and it might mean having paper cups in your canteen, or it might be reusable items that you use throughout the factory that you don't throw away that you normally would, and it's all the little things that matter as well, the details, as well as but you have to start off like Etikot have done, really, with an entire philosophy about being committed to sustainability.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to start the wrap up. I'm going to say that a few points that I've picked up when I've been listening to you all is that having a vision or a philosophy, or indeed a culture that is embracing it, taking steps one at a time and measuring them, committing to a target as well. So having a kind of, whether it's CO2, whether it's a certain date, whether it's net zero or whatever, but having that and having it very open and honest with it, accepting it's a journey, and then maybe starting by looking at reducing first, maybe because it's the biggest chunk and biggest win, and accepting that you're learning, and also being prepared to do the research, because in the long run. And as many of you have said already, we've got looming legislation, we've got changing consumer trends, we've got a younger generation that won't accept things that are not sustainably produced. There are massive forces for change here, and this is about getting ready, getting prepared, and optimizing your business opportunity as well. So Thanks so much for joining us, and thank you all, panel, for a fantastic 60 minutes. It went by pretty quickly, actually, so testament to you all. And I hope you join us again at a future Future Print webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus.